there. I had some redox that was 5.2, 5.3, so it was right on that edge, and it was one small area. To the extent of that, from that one soil plug to extrapolate it out, I would leave that to the consultants for the project to evaluate and determine if that is a wetland or not, and if it is, how big it is. If it is a wetland there, it's probably not very big, and I would not think it's connected to anything else based on what I saw out there. Hydrology-wise, I know there was questions on if this area is an ILSIF or not. There's lots of small pools. I was calling them micro pools. The whole area is on a gradient, so that the whole larger area won't pool water. It flows, and I was there during some heavy rain, and I saw it moving through the system from one little micro pool to the other, and it would drop down 3 inches to the next pool. And all these pools are relatively small. I thought the mapping that they did was pretty detailed, showing where all the different pools are when they generated it by the LiDAR. That all kind of standing in there in the field kind of looked pretty real. So I think they did a pretty decent job with that, with the LiDAR assessment. None of those pools individually hold much water. The deepest one may have been 4 inches, 5 inches, at maximum volume before the water would just spill over the rock down to the next pool that was down gradient there. Most of them are pretty small, 10 feet diameter at the most, probably for the largest one. So they all kind of move. The water generally just moves down towards the southern property line, and then it just gets diffused as it kind of heads off property. I didn't do any real investigation off property. I know there was no trespassing signs. The parcel wasn't part of the investigation, but you can stand there and look and see how it kind of broad and flattens out, and it gets less rocky. And I don't know what the soils are doing over there. I'm assuming the water just infiltrates in. I didn't see any preferential flow channels forming anywhere in there to be qualified as bank habitat or be a bank that would connect to anything down gradient. So that's kind of the summation of what I found. I left one area very small. I don't know the exact size of it. I wouldn't expect it to be very large if it was a jurisdictional IVW down in the southern part of the property that wasn't in the area of the proposed crossing. The area of the proposed crossing was pretty clearly upland, soil-wise, vegetation-wise, and everything up gradient of that the same, clearly upland, vegetatively and soils-wise. So that's kind of the summation of what I did. And if you guys have questions, we can talk about any or all of it.
Sounds pretty good to me.
No questions?
I don't have any questions, no.
Oh, good summation.
Yeah, I appreciate the summary. So, Steve, as far as the question of isolated land subject to flooding, what's your? I guess I need a clear opinion of that.
Yeah, so it doesn't make. It's not the whole area. If you take the conglomeration of all those pools together, they wouldn't hold water. All of it. The whole thing's on a gradient. If you filled it up with a 15-inch rain event, it would kind of look the same as if it had a 2-inch rain event. The amount of water is pretty limited on how much they can hold before it moves through, and it's each individual pool, and none of them individually qualify as ILSIF. Under the state regs, under the bylaw, I know you guys don't have a size requirement, so that's a question for you guys. And I don't know if you'd be setting precedent or not by calling those small. I don't want to call them puddles. They're little areas that pool water, but they're relatively small and they don't hold a lot. And the length of time that they retain water is probably very long. Although I didn't do a hydrologic investigation over multiple days after rainfall to see how long they hold water. There's a lot of factors that go into that, time of year and soil permeability and multiple things. So my thought is ILSIF statewide, no, it's clearly not an ILSIF. Under the bylaw, I think there's some ambiguity because you guys don't have a size requirement. You know, if you want to take jurisdiction over every little micro pool out there. You know, it's up to you guys if you want to do that. It's, you know, I don't know where we'd go if we got challenged. It's hard to say what, you know.
I think this is I think this is kind of a unique situation though, where you've got a very large number of these individual pools. I understand what you're saying, and I understand that each individual one doesn't hold much water, but as a you know, because there are such a concentration of these over a fairly large area, I guess that was and I understand what you're saying, that even, you know, the 43 or whatever that are mapped combined is not a lot of water. I guess I don't want to set a precedent saying that we don't consider some isolated land subject to flooding that, you know, because of the special circumstance. Site.
Yeah, it is a unique little setting out there, and I have seen similar in other locations where you have small areas of pooled water on, you know, that kind of like a ridgeberry kind of soil. Also statewide, if the bottom part was contained, you know, and the water, you know, maybe flowed from one pool to the other, but kind of stayed in one of the other pools, you know, you can kind of draw a topo line around it, even if you did half foot contours or something to kind of say, yes, there's a basin here that can hold, you know, XYZ amount of water to X depth, and, you know, say it's a quarter acre feet or whatever, you know, the requirement for ILSIF. But I think just with the gradient and how it's open ended on the southern end, you really can't do that part of it. But there's no precedent in ILSIF to accumulate a bunch of little small things and put them into one under the state law. Under the bylaw, I think you probably have more flexibility if you want to do that. You know, I'm not totally up to speed on all the nuances of your bylaw and how it's been applied in the past and that type of stuff.
Can I make a suggestion, if you don't mind?
You want to finish?
You want to finish with him? I had a question that I think may resolve this issue, a comment, and I'm curious if I can just present that and have
A question or a comment, which is?
pretty much a comment. I know that the commission is really reluctant to give up jurisdiction over ILSF areas. One suggestion I'd have would be rather to actually just make no action on that particular item. We provided a detailed site plan based upon the Sturbridge wetlands bylaw. I think it's appropriate that a request for determination be filed for areas, specifically areas that are taking place outside the state 100-foot buffer zone, and it includes areas such as driveways. So I think the commission could use the RDA application and grant a permit under the local bylaw and simply not make a decision on the presence or absence of ILSF. Then you don't have to make the decision. You're looking at the project and the merits of the project and approving specifically the project rather than narrowing it down to make a decision on the ILSF issue.
Okay, David, what do you think?
I'm ready to make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing. Well, do I have a second on that?
Do we want to check the public first?
Got to check the public. Give me a minute. Public.
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on the RDA Hillside Drive?
Mr. Engel, do you have anything to say?
I would just add, you know, what Scott said, the current plan does incorporate
Yeah.
additional volume for whatever would be lost if that were to be an ILSF. It's actually, we'd be providing more than what we'd be losing, but otherwise that's all
What
I'll
if we-
add.
Yeah, what if we,
You're not
put under
showing,
notice of intent,
so,
under the,
right,
under
so
the
if you,
Sturbridge bylaw?
yeah, if you look at it, I guess, right, if there's IVW out there, right? One thing would be, all right, should we, can we put some lines out there and put a buffer zone on it? We don't even have any buffer zones on the plans right now, right, except for what's coming off the other pond.
Right.
Or wait until summer and make sure there's no herbaceous vegetation that grows up. I don't think, John wants to probably wait till summer. His intent is to build. What I had kind of thought was, right, all right, so you designate where the IVW is, just put some flags up, designate it based off of where it's ponding, I guess, where the soils were found.
It's literally the flag is hanging on a white pine tree. And I tried, if you look at my report, I tried to
But
do,
when you're talking about filing the RDA, like approving this through the RDA, you're talking about if it's just buffer zone, what are you drawing the buffer zone off of? I think you'd have to
we're
designate
just
it.
assuming that it's within jurisdiction. The commission approves the project, the limits of the project, no clearing outside the limits of the project. We've addressed the ILSF compensatory flood storage through the project design. And as Steve indicated, we're nowhere near that area.
Well, you're about 50 feet probably or so, right? I mean, I don't know. I haven't.
Right, but keep in mind too that if you slide it further, you're going to go through the biggest ponding area that's on the site because you've got to shift it further
Right, but I'm
away,
just talking
so-
about when,
Right.
when we look at, I guess I'm just, for Ed's question here, I'm like, when we look at how we approve things, all right, if you've got disturbance, new driveway going through an area 50 feet from a regulated wetland, right? We don't just approve that through an RDA typically. We have
Do you
some
have that plan?
classifications under our
Can you show
bylaw.
that?
Could you pull that plan up? It's probably closer to 100 feet.
Yeah.
I can pull it up, but I guess just to answer the question, like, how we would approve something, like we have a local notice of intent that gets filed, for work we have, even when we have, new houses outside 100 feet, 100 to 200 feet. Usually that's what they require, as that's the wetland permit that we would give under the bylaw. So one option would be, right, okay, we look at it, approve it through that process. You're compensating if you want to, they don't want to make a determination if it's ILSF at this point in time, is that how can you permit this? And you do it that way. You're showing that you're compensating. It's not a wildlife habitat impact or whatnot. IVW, you could designate that on there, show buffer zones. That's an option. That's an
Yeah, like I
option,
said,
I guess. That would be
we
a
filed
quick.
the RDA. All the butters have been notified. It's the same process as a notice of intent application.
But it doesn't get recorded like on a deed. There's conditions during work that need to be implemented that, that's why,
But that would be-
certain projects get filed as a notice of intent.
Okay, you guys,
versus
I
an
don't want
RDA.
to have an argument here,
Yeah.
okay?
No, I'm just
Right.
I think
explain it.
I think it's all something that can be conditioned.
David, you want to close the public hearing?
I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
All right.
I'll
Stephen,
second
do I
it.
have a second?
Right, just
Right, I write it, okay. Discussion? I think we just have to get this, off our plate, and I think that, notice of intent under the Sturbridge bylaw. I went up there and wandered around up there for a couple hours in the middle of a torrential rainstorm. And it shows all the flows coming off of the pond and coming down. But I don't think that it holds water for more than 2 days before it starts to drain out. And it does go downhill off the property pretty quick, but we don't have to determine, property has been subdivided by current owner or part of it, so. I just go, I think we should close the public hearing and request a notice of intent. I don't want to get to flora and fauna, which is what was agreed to. I pretty much agree with what Steve has come up with. But it's not a non-spot.
Mr. Chairman, the reason that I'm suggesting that we close the public hearing is exactly what Ecotech has suggested. And within that new process, what we have to do is make a note clearly indicating that we had a suspicion that it was an isolated wetland area, but that we had a review by Ecotech and we had a review by a third-party reviewer, which gave us indications that perhaps it did not meet the full requirements of isolated wetland. Just so that if someone else later has a change in the Sturbridge bylaw, or if at some later date state changes the isolated wetland bylaw, then we will be covered. The next person looking at this will say, oh yeah, well, they checked it out before and they had the experts look at it, but in fact, they decided that it really wasn't isolated wetland subject to flooding. And with that, I'd like to move the motion.
Move the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodman in favor. Okay.
Okay, so you're gonna make the motion, David?
I don't think
He
you
did
already
make the motion.
I thought we were voting on,
We already voted on it.
I thought we were voting on the closing.
Oh, we did.
Oh, we voted on
Public
this.
hearing, so now, yeah.
What's
David?
the motion?
The motion was to close the public
We
hearing.
did it. We closed it.
Yeah.
It's closed.
Oh, next up. Um,
I think he's writing it down. Say it.
you want to include that they have a request for determination of applicability for 53 Hillside?
It is a request for determination of applicability. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know how to get out of this.
What are you in?
We closed the public hearing.
Yeah. Now we should issue a denial, right?
Well, no, you issue positive or negative determinations. So,
Yeah.
right, they asked, is the area or the work subject to the Wetlands Protection Act? Is it subject to the
No.
bylaw?
It's the what, it's no and yes.
Okay, so I think everyone agrees that it's not subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, so that would be a -1 and a -3,
Yep.
because the area and the work is not subject. And however you want to handle it under the bylaw.
Request for a notice of intent.
So you're saying it's a +5, the area and or work described
Right.
is subject to review of the Sturbridge
What's
Wetland
the,
bylaw.
we need to know what the jurisdiction is.
We just
We
said
can't
that.
just say it's positive. We've gone through this process. The poor Mr. Rowley spent 3 months and thousands of dollars on a peer review, and the commission still hasn't provided any guidance as to what the jurisdiction is, other than just simply saying positive.
Well, I think you asked for an RDA, is it subject to, but I think that what's been said is that, you know, he looked at it, feels there's a spot that could be an IVW, would like to have that designated. And, you know, however they feel about isolated land subject to flooding, I think they gave some feedback about that.
Becky, talk to us.
Okay,
It's closed, okay?
okay.
I'm not trying to be rude, but we just have to get it, okay? So you're looking for a motion, and the motion was you started to, it's not,
Subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, so that'd be a -1 and a -3.
Yep.
One's work, one's area, If you're saying it's subject to your bylaw, then it'd be a positive number 5.
Yep.
Your motion, David?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Further discussion. So that gives them what they need to know, right?
Well, you issued a determination for them, and you told them that it's subject to the bylaw and that they need to file, and I think we've talked
What's the
about it.
jurisdiction?
I think we just
What's
talked about
subject to
that.
the bylaw? Is it ILSF? Is it IVW? What's the jurisdiction? We need to know what the jurisdiction is to be able to formulate a notice of intent.
I think we've said that they're saying
What
it's
is it?
isolated vegetated wetland where he asked to be looked at. You can wait till summer if you want to argue it and show there's no vegetation there, but, you know, we'll say it's IVW there.
Does
And
he-
then isolated land subject to
Can I
flooding
ask-
according to the
No, you
bylaw
can't.
this time.
No, you can't.
This is ridiculous.
Okay. It's ridiculous, but we closed the public hearing, and we're going to move on, okay?
Okay.
All in favor of the motion? David?
As I said, I don't know how to get us out of this.
Well, what we're saying is positive number 5, isolated land subject to flooding, Sturbridge bylaw.
But we just verified that it's not an isolated land subject to flooding.
Under the Wetland Protection Act, not under the Sturbridge bylaw.
I think the issue is that our peer reviewer, though, is saying that in his opinion, you know, it's questionable, even under the STRP. So
Okay.
so I have an issue with that too, and I think, you know, the applicant, to their credit, they picked an access through this area that minimizes both the impact to, if it is potentially isolated land subject to flooding, and a potential buffer zone that could, you know, from this small area that's to the south. So I mean, I honestly, at this point, have a problem with this issuing a positive 5.
Roy? What? What?
I'm thoroughly confused.
Well, I think it's up to the board, and you should have a discussion on it,
Yeah.
on how you want to review it under the bylaw, right? We talked about it on another project site, you know, there is some, you know, the language is open, and I definitely think that, you know, having this come up, the commission needs to set some better parameters for this moving forward. But it is pretty vague right now, it's pretty open, up to your interpretation, how you want to interpret that. You know, so I think maybe you need to have a discussion about that, you know, related here, and how you want to move forward and vote on that. But also, you know, he did say, which, right, you know, there's IVW maybe in a small area,
Yeah.
and how you want to handle that too, I guess, to give him
Yeah,
some feedback.
The problem with this site is that, you know, I was there too. I've been on site, and my first impression was that it's a wetland, just based on what I saw. But in listening to Steve's explanation of his analysis, and, you know, it was in line with what Scott had presented. And so at this point, I'm willing to, you know, to go with the peer review comment that although we have the ability to call this an isolated land subject to flooding under our local bylaw, I'm not sure that this qualifies because of the very unique situation of this site. So I think we have to abide by what the peer reviewers comment.
All right, well, then let's vote on it.
Let's vote on the motion that's on and if it passed.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's good. And Roy, do you have any further input? I can, all right, let's vote on it. All in favor, David?
I'm not positive what we're voting on. The positive 5?
Positive 5, yeah.
I'm in favor.
Okay. I'm opposed.
Stephen Chittister opposed.
Roy Bishop opposed?
All right. That done. Let's go back the other way and All right? So basically, we're saying it's not subject to the,
And now I need a new
A
motion.
new motion. Yeah.
I need a new motion.
Steve, this is not how they all go.
All right, so I'll make the motion. So it would be a -5. right?
-5.
All right. For 53 Hillside Drive, RDA, I propose a -1, a -3, and a -5, not subject to bylaws, wetland.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't bring the determination of blank one with me, but, because I know I wrote it wrong on here, because I was kind of rushing when I was finishing this. Number 3 is work as described in the request will not alter an area subject, so I don't think
Before
that's
we can
correct. Just go
discuss
with
it,
the
we need a
-1.
second.
-1.
Yeah,
Here it
I
is.
don't have a
second it.
determination with me. I didn't
What'd you
bring
say,
it.
David?
I'll second it. You need a second before
Okay,
we
we
can
have a
discuss.
second. Okay. Discussion? All in favor? David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Thank you very much. I know it's confusing, but I truly appreciate your efforts here.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Good night.
Steve, go have a beer for us, will you? We gotta
We all deserve it.
Have a good night.
Okay, we were at
7:25.
231, 233, and 235 Cedar Street.
Written continuation was received. I'll help you out here. Till June 2nd.
Yeah. We have a written continuation to June 2nd.
Sounds
Do we need
good?
to- Do we need to check the public?
How many?
If there's anyone still here. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on the Cedar Street and Rad?
No.
I make a motion that we continue to the next.
June 2nd?
I wish
Why
I
are we
had that
continuing?
determination.
Wait a minute, why are we continuing?
Yeah, the question is why are we
With a
continuing?
written
We have a
continuation?
written request for continuation from the applicant.
So
And what
this
did
is,
the written request say?
so this was the ANRAD where, the Cedar Street property that had all the lots there, had the
Yeah.
work back in the 80s. They filed a notice of intent to do the restoration work and put the pipes in that they were supposed to. They started the wetland replication work late fall. They got all the grading done, and they have to finish it. They haven't done the plantings. They need to have an engineer go out and survey it all afterwards, and then we can issue an ORAD showing that. But at this point in time, we don't have that. So, right, they need to get the plantings in before we can
Yeah.
finish that up. So,
We should put it on a site visit. See what the heck's going on up there.
I just went by there not too long ago.
You
and
did,
I had
okay.
been out there when they
Yeah.
had done some of the work. And right, they've got, they've dug everything out to get it prepped to be planted. It just needs to be planted. All the pipes were put in the driveways.
I don't know what I'm doing. Continuation, David?
I need a second.
I second it.
Hey, what?
No vote.
Oh, I forgot about.
All in favor of continuation, David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor. We're on number 10. 263 New Boston Road, continued RDA.
Here I am.
Oh, good, okay.
I knew you were there, Glenn. I could feel it.
Yeah, well, how would I miss all this?
Oh,
You
I
guys-
don't know.
This is only my sixth hearing tonight from in Webster, and then I had Orange, Mass, and I had to wait for, no problem.
All right, let's go.
Have you on the phone with me?
All right, so this is a continuation for 263 New Boston Road. This is an RDA. They were asking us to confirm vernal pool on the site or not. Mr. Grabowski has been going out there for the past maybe month or so, almost a month now probably, looking at the site and sending in some documentation. I went out there once, you know, doesn't appear it probably holds water long enough. I think that at this point we should discuss an ending date of his monitoring, which I think could be in the very near future based off what's been observed out there so far. And then with that, have him, you know, finish up that monitoring, send in a report, final report with his observations that you guys can review, and be able to make a determination if that those two areas on the site appear to qualify as vernal pools. That would be my recommendation. I think that you could probably, you know, choose a date in the very near future to end that.
What date? What date?
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Oh.
Today's what, the 21st?
Today's the 21st of April.
Do you want to just say the end of the month?
Sure.
That gives us 2 months
April
that he's
30th
been
is a
looking at.
Saturday.
Yeah, April 3rd, yeah.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve of a continuation to the date indicated because of more information coming, and Becky just indicated the 16 different points that she needs more information on.
April 30th?
That's the end date for the monitoring.
End date, yeah.
April 30th.
Yep. All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right.
Do you think we need the end date of the monitoring included in the motion, or that's just for the note? You want it included?
Included in the, yeah. That was how we started it. It truncated a little bit, so you're right.
For 150 Charlton Road?
No, I'm starting that now, David. 150 Charlton Road, continued NOI development of a commercial building, truck parking and supporting infrastructure for a tow truck facility. 300-1115.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue that meeting as well in order to provide sufficient time for the peer reviewer.
But we don't have a peer reviewer here.
Before we discuss it, I need a second.
Yeah, the peer reviewer is peer reviewer.
Oh, sorry.
What?
We're on to 150 Charlton Road?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
He wants to allow time for the peer reviewer
Yep.
because we sent over that.
yeah.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All right. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Now we are on 174 Charlton Road, RDA, request for determination of applicability, restoration of riverfront.
Isn't that what we just did?
No, no, that's it's almost, but it's next door.
All right, so just to open this here, we have proof of a butter notification and legal ad receipt. So what this is they filed a RDA to do the restoration activities, removal of the piles, primarily on the adjacent property, 150 Charlton Road, that they're proposing as mitigation for that project. I mean, I included this in my notes. I mean, I would see this as requiring a notice of intent.
Okay.
It's directly related to, you know, the project at 150 Charlton Road. I mean, it's in riverfront area, and due to the proximity of it, redoing the, you know, right up to where the crossing is, et cetera, work, requires BMPs and would require, you know, monitoring afterwards because this is, you know, restoration, you know, which is mitigation associated with that permit. I would just think that that should be done through an order of conditions. That's just my thoughts. It's similar to what we
Well,
did
Nadia,
on the
you'd
Picker
like-
Road project.
So how do we get to close this?
Well, it would just be a +1. The area described is subject to the act, requires an NOI. He also asked if the work was subject and say yes, the +3, the work is subject, requires a filing notice of intent, and +5, the area work described is subject to review of the Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw.
All right. You want to make that motion, Steve?
Sure.
Can you hear from will there be any voice from the applicant's representative?
Sure.
Well, thank you. We talked to the Cheslers who would be performing the work, and this is a one-day process to remove the tailings piles that were dropped there in 88, 89. We hear that the commission is concerned with losing open fields, so we would propose to remove the fill piles and seed it with a warm weather, such as a little blue stem, and along with the property at 150 that goes over to the cell tower, we would take all exotic invasives, which are just the Bush's autumn olive, and turn that into fields to make up for fields being lost, as the commission's concerned, at 150. And so the whole area to the west side of the brook would both have fields with a fill pile, so there's very little monitoring because it'll be a grass seed under the piles on a one-day operation. And encumbering the deed or clouding the deed at 174 for 3 years for a one-day operation to take out tailings piles. The applicant is asking that they consider a determination with conditions that we monitor the grass seed and that we do maintain that 4 to 5 inches of topsoil, which is underneath the fill piles, because it was never removed. But we would investigate that as we'd be guiding, EVT would guide the removal of the piles. So for one day job and then grass seed growing, there's not much monitoring on that, and it could still be conditioned under a negative. And again, it's the encumbrance of that deed of 174 that's of concern. Thank you for hearing me.
David, how do you want to handle it?
I like to move to close the public hearing first, Ed, after the public gets to weigh in on it. And then we can deal with the items that Becky has put down for the closure. A +1, +3, +5. I think that if it's a one-day job, get in and get out, and to spread the appropriate amount of, what'd you say, Glenn, blue stem?
The little blue stem, right? That's a drier grass. You've seen the big blue stem more out west, up this way a bit. They've introduced it more. But the little blue stem is in open fields. It takes to that drier climate, that drier terrain, and that's the grass that we were using at the Worcester landfill for grasshopper sparrow. It's a native, and that's what we would plant there instead of doing bushes, so that we have just more fields.
Guys,
It also includes going over to the cell tower, Ed.
It was
Is a good thing.
proposed as part of the plan for 150 Charlton Road that access would be coming off of 174 for part of the construction of this site. Is that still proposed?
No, it isn't. The proposal is only to put the erosion controls through 174, run the quads that carry the hay bales, S&M farms, or should I say straw bales.
so that's kind of a yes, right?
No other construction. There is construction. It would
I
just
thought
be
the-
erosion control.
There was,
Until the driveway.
yeah, they
You
wanted to
said
get
at
the
last
driveway
meeting it
in,
was Until the driveway was
We-
put in.
But since then, we've looked at other construction along, in fact, in the last 2 weeks along 20, where one lane was closed, the guardrail rail was removed, and the equipment got into the site. And so once the equipment's into the site and the ramp is built down, which it can all be done in one day, then all the equipment gets into that driveway, the proposed driveway is. So we don't need to, there was a discussion within the group, and we don't want to put any equipment over the area except for to get the erosion control.
Over the wetland meadow.
We moved, on that other subject of 150, we moved the wall back, we staked out that slope path, we kept to the upgrading of where the slope rose up, and that's all on your new plan that the peer reviewer is viewing.
We've got it under an IDA, but if you were just gonna remove the piles, I might say yes, but you're not just gonna remove the piles. You've already talked about using it as an access for 150, and you talked about going down and removing some of the invasives.
No, the invasives would come out on 150, that dog lake of 150 that goes over to the cell tower. That's the area that's already under your NOI. And so the one use would be to put in the erosion controls via the 174, that half a day work for S&M Farms. And that would be a minimum use of it, of 174. We did explain that.
Well, let's continue this then, because let's wait and see if we approve 150 before we approve 174. Because there's no sense in improving 174 if we don't approve 150.
Okay.
So let's continue 174. I'd like a motion to continue 174 to the next meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Nope. Ask the public.
Public?
Anyone else on the public line that would like to speak on the 174 Charlton Road RDA?
Thanks for that catch, David. I think I'm starting my weekend when I got home tonight.
Saying May 12th.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good evening now.
Take care. 235 Podunk Road. Continued RDA. That's still continued?
No, we actually received a request to withdraw, so you can close the public hearing.
All right. Motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, 14.
Wait, we have to, so they're going to withdraw. Close the public hearing.
They withdrew. We have a written request to withdraw. So with that, with an RDA, I would just notify DEP that it was withdrawn for their records.
Okay.
Yep.
We still have to
Do it again?
number 14.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
234 Podunk Road. Continued Sturbridge bylaw NOI. Construction of a single-family home and associated site work.
Same thing. This one
Same
was
thing.
also withdrawn.
Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
So move.
David, you second?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. We are on 17. Leadvine Mountain Conservation Area, special use May 1st to June 18th.
15, 16.
The hell did I do that?
15 is minutes and 16 is...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I went to the numbers, huh? 15. Minutes for 3/31/22. Have a motion to approve? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Second? Any discussion, any corrections? I tried to have a correction today, and I ended up being wrong. All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
All right, great. All right, now Lead Mine Mountain Conservation Area, special use, 4:30.
All right, so this is a request from Matt Byrne from BSC Group. They want to do a spring nature hike for staff and families led by senior ecologist and professional wetland scientist Matt Byrne. Matt Byrne is the vernal pool guy. He did all like the vernal pool book with Leo Kenny and stuff like that. So yeah, he's part of the Vernal Pool Association.
Great.
So you know.
Do we get some free
He
t-shirts
also
out of it?
conducted 2 of the classes for this year's Holy Cross thing that wasn't at Holy Cross.
25 people in attendance. They estimate 15 cars. No food served, no nothing like that. So.
Great.
Do we do motions for that, or we just sign?
I think they've done a motion to approve the use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way we would do it.
It could
even though
just
we
be a
probably don't need to.
consensus. It doesn't have to be a motion.
Did you make a motion, David?
No, I said it just has to be a consensus. Unless Becky wants a motion to verify.
Can't hear what he's saying.
You said it doesn't have to be a motion, it can be consensus.
Yeah.
We just vote on it.
All in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
All right.
Since I have you in person, I'll just have you sign.
Yep. No problem.
Next one is another use for lead mine. This is it's for Heinz Farm. This is a Girl Scout. Her name is Avery Adams. What she would like to do is she would like to, between May 1st to June 18th, she'd like to create a story walk on the Pond Loop Trail. So I guess it's Heinz and lead mine because it loops around on this other side of the road. For the story work, she would like to post laminate pages from a children's book along the trail for families to read together. And this is just that she'd have it out there, so it's not like a, estimated number of people or whatever. It'd just be for people walking that. I didn't have the opportunity to ask her, but I would just ask how she plans on posting those signs, just to make sure that gets cleaned up afterwards, etc. If she's hanging them from trees or putting them actually, posted around. Some conditions to clean that up at the end.
I think that's very good.
All in favor?
I would remind you, Becky, that before COVID, they used to do this with little kids every single year.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor?
David Barnacle in favor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay. It would be a tragedy.
All right, we are now. We just thought it was the Guinness.
So wait a minute, Becky, you said that was Heinz Farm, but 18 says Heinz Farm. Conservation
Probably
Area
it's
Special
Heinz
Use.
Farm too.
The
one.
third one's Heinz Farms? The third one
No,
is,
Lead Mine,
just
Lead
Heinz
Mine,
Farms.
and then Heinz Farm is this one
yeah,
here.
the second one's lead mine and Heinz.
I see.
All
I'm
right.
just looking at the dates here. So this one is another request from the library. They'd like to do a story time for local families, July 12th and July 26th. Estimate 20-30 people, about 10 cars.
Excellent. All in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor? And old business?
Committee updates.
Yes, CPA hasn't met. Lake Advisory isn't here.
Meeting tonight. They met already, they're already gone home.
You never know. Maybe
Yeah.
they
Maybe
haven't.
not.
Open space, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that my wife was working very hard to get 15 acres on, what's the road? I keep forgetting the name of the road.
Your Pond Road?
No,
Drive?
Cedar Lake.
no.
Karen Road.
It's on
Karen
Karen Road and Cedar, yeah.
Mostly, it's on, no, because the other parts is,
Oh.
is another parcel.
You're correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
it all comes off of Karen Road, yeah.
She's working very hard to get it on the warrant to have us vote on. We own the land, she just wants to put it under conservation, so it's protected. And I went and looked, and it flows directly into Cedar Lake, the brook. So it would be a good piece of land to have protected. So that's what I have for open space. Agents report,
21?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a few quick things. There was some work that occurred at a property at Lad Road that I was notified of. I did go out there and look at it. I was actually able to find, we knew there was wetlands out there. I found some old plans from the house was developed, but I did send them a letter notifying of them of that and to contact us. So I will keep you posted on that. You probably got the emails because you're part of MACC, but the Senate passed the Public Lands Preservation Act. And now it'll have to move to the state house, the house. Yep. So that's a good thing. I'm still waiting for 102 South Shore Drive. That's the one with the discharge that's going out. I have been in contact with him. They got the price from the contractor, and they're figuring out how they can, handle that. So that's the only update I have on that. I went out today with Glenn Colburn with Opakam Land Trust. We have, I had previously informed you of property on Allen Road that abuts our property, that the abutter kind of went onto our property and did a little bit of clearing, etc. So Glenn and I kind of went out and established the general area of the property line as a weird kind of jog in the property line, set that up, talked to him about what he needs to do to rectify that. So I will be sending a letter out to him and do expect to be getting something back from him soon on how to handle that. Just so you know, we did decide to continue with the Earth Day event. A little different. We had talked about it, I don't know, beginning of March. Working with DPW, we're having bags available for people. They can come pick them up from us or at DPW. Tomorrow is Earth Day. And do a pickup and contact DPW, let them know the bags will be to come get. So pick up on the road. So if you want some bags, they're by the door on your way out. So, we've had a lot of people come in and get bags.
Yeah, it was great idea before.
Yeah,
Great idea.
I know.
A lot of people came and picked. Remember that?
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
I had sent you guys, I don't want to go into detail about it, but I had sent you an email to try to set up an executive session.
Next week?
Well, I haven't heard back from anybody, so if I did, I did email again today to check in with Alex to see if those dates are still an option. I think it probably should be done before our next meeting. It was kind of late in the game to add it to this meeting, especially because we don't have a private place to meet in this building anymore. I think we can do it if, one can come in, we can do it virtually, provided we post it appropriately. So, the dates that he gave were Monday and Tuesday of next week. I don't know if that is an option for anyone or if you want to try to look past that.
How long?
Right.
I don't think it'll be long, half an hour to an hour. I don't think
Not
it'll be
gonna
an
be an
hour at
hour.
all. Yeah,
Not
I think
gonna be
it's
an
a half an hour.
If we could, it would help me a lot because it's during hours.
Yep.
If I could do it virtually.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see why not. We have the option to do that, provided
Good
we
thing to
post
do.
it.
This is good. This is the good stuff. Yeah.
Earlier is better.
Okay.
Monday for me, early.
Now, is Alec gonna phone in too?
I'm not sure, but probably.
Okay, so where you have it in your office? Okay, I can come in.
Yeah. Well, at least one person comes in. I think
Yeah.
that's sufficient. So Monday earlier, like before 10. I'm just trying to gauge so I can
That would be best for me.
9.
Nine's perfect.
9:30?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and we can send the link out. Okay, and I'll check with Eric on that.
David could call in?
Yep.
Thank you, Ed.
9:30? Is that what you put down?
I put 9 or 9:30. I'll call Alex tomorrow
No?
and maybe he probably hopefully replied to my email by now, so. That's it.
Becky?
Yep.
I'd like to go back to the first item that you brought up after you get done with the trails things.
Yep.
The public lands bill that passed on Thursday through the Senate was greatly watered down from what the House had done. So now it goes to conference committee. It doesn't go to the House. And the conference committee is supposed to iron out some of the snags that are in it. There's a problem there. And that is that last year, exactly the same process took place. It went into conference and the conference never met. So one of the problems is that with the Senate part of the bill, they offer up public lands as being able to be traded if you have a really good project like a new city hall. So 96 money could be used for something other than what it's proposed to be used for. So it ain't what it was written about right away. They have to see if they're going to meet. And if they come up with a list of people who are on the committees, they'll distribute it and I'll send it out again to the people on the committee.
Okay.
No, we have to go backwards now.
Yeah.
It's 20, 21, and 22.
Let's skip some stuff. So you have a
Wait.
sheet over there, just quick, you know, we're working on that Trails Master Plan update, and we're waiting on that to be delivered. As part of that, they did ask for comments. They had a survey. Fish and Wildlife wrote a little memo. They didn't know if these, she had called me and said, well, write what, you would want to write, what the plan includes or not. So I wanted you to get this memo. I mean, they, since I have been here, they've expressed concern of overdevelopment of trails in the property, especially, they're concerned about, limiting trails to the north part of the gas pipeline on there. And they just kind of wanted to reiterate that, to make sure that, the other purposes of the CR are taken into consideration there. And I did tell them that the Trails Master Plan wasn't, to cite specific trails and locations or not. But they just wanted to make sure that everyone was reminded of their concerns there, especially that particular area. That's all.
Can I add one thing to the minutes?
Fees.
Fees.
Oh, yeah, I just meant that's all about that, yeah. So then, right, we have the fees here. So I know it's a lot to be looking at 9:51 here, but, we've been working to revise these fees. As far as we can tell, the fees have not been revised since the bylaw was implemented in 2002. So it's been quite some time. We've looked at some other towns. We have some other towns listed here. We tried to look at ones that have bylaws, some similar aspects to our community. A lot of the surrounding towns don't have bylaws necessarily, or they're not like the same as our community. You know what I mean? And what we're doing for work here, etc. So the intent, of these fees is to, we get some fees under the Wetlands Protection Act that go into our wetland fund. But we really haven't been charging much for fees under our bylaw that goes into the general fund, which is what supports staff here pretty much. Recently, we've been talking about doing this anyways, but recently, Erin had watched the Board of Selectmen meeting and they were talking about that they want departments to look at their fee structures and how they can be revised. So we tried to show you what some other people were doing here and, include, ones that there's some significant fees here. What's interesting, you can see in some of these communities, a lot of them have a plus on it. They automatically include a consulting fee for every application that comes in. Which I can, we do peer reviews on certain things when needed, but we don't on all of these. So we've tried to kind of really look at those and try to find, obviously not charging the most of what everybody charges, but find find a good medium, you know, and take into account that we're not charging these people a consultant fee every time they come in of $500 or more, you know? So, you know, right now, what Erin's put together here, you can see Sturbridge, this first one, Sturbridge. Dave, do you have that? It was on the email from Erin.
The minute.
Can you call it up and share your screen?
I can't do that. Dave, do you need me to share my screen so you can see this, or did you print it from the email? Did you lose sound?
Dave? David?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. Can you, were you able to print or pull up from the email from Erin with the fees on there? Do you need me to pull
No.
it up on my screen? I'll share my screen, Dave.
There's a really bad echo. I can't really understand you, Becky.
Oh.
Now, as you back away, that was better.
All right, let me, I'm gonna share my screen in a minute here.
One of the things I'd just like to bring up is that these here are sort of like relative cost of what it costs the town of Sturbridge to process your, say, RDA. And as of right now, we're basically lose money every time.
You actually share?
Oh, yeah, I didn't hit share, thank you.
Doesn't factor sending someone a certified, your permit for tonight that I'm mailing out is now $9.
I was kind of shocked when I saw
And
this.
it's $25.
How it's just one rate for everything, and obviously that's a tremendous work for some of that stuff. Yeah, I really thought you did a good job of kind of using a sort of a middle value versus trying to go the max. It's substantially more than what we're charging now, but it seems reasonable based on what other. Yeah. What do we have to do to actually implement these changes?
So it's gonna be approved by the board, and then it has to go to the Board of Selectmen for approval too.
Okay.
So that would be the next step.
Well, I'm ready.
Okay, do you want to go through, because the sheet I have up is the comparison.
Right.
I can pull up the other one too.
No, we don't want to vote on the other ones. Just vote
No,
on
the
ours.
comparison is
I know, we
what
looked
we
at
are
it.
currently, the next one.
The proposed is what we're proposing, what our fees will go to.
That's what I'm saying, that's what we're voting on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have the other one on the screen here for,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation that we have in front of us.
I second that motion.
There was one.
Looks out of line. Any discussion? David?
Nope.
Aaron, do you have anything else that you want?
I was just saying that I remember this week was kind of a whirlwind, but there was one that we had a question about, Becky, and we were gonna leave it up to them.
let's go through this.
The one that's
Oh,
equal to
there's
full
two.
value.
It's alterations located within the riverfront area on the proposed, that would be the third one from the, under notice of intent.
Yeah.
So if you are working within the riverfront, like, for instance, this evening's 88 South Shore Drive, you would immediately have to pay an additional 50% of the fee, which is the same as that is what DEP charges. So when you do a notice of intent and you're paying the state of Massachusetts, if you're working in riverfront, you immediately pay 50%.
I think it's alterations also located in the riverfront. So if like you're in buffer zone and then you also are in riverfront, then you add the 50% on for the riverfront value, because there's a huge set of regs that you gotta review.
Yeah.
Right.
So under the WPA and under our bylaw, we have separate regs for that, so, we didn't know how you felt about that.
There were
I
just a
think
couple that,
50% seems reasonable.
Okay, I agree. There's, all right, underneath that, application filed.
and then
after
application
enforcement.
filed after enforcement order. So if we catch you doing something and then we say, oh, you have to file a notice of intent now, that's like, okay, you also have to pay double, unfortunately.
And I have to say that that's what building department does too. We actually thought another town did this, but building department here does that. So if you know,
That works.
Fine with that.
That-
Okay.
Yep.
Good. All right, after that discussion, all in favor?
Roy Bishop in
David
favor.
Barnacle, in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Ed Gilder in favor.
All right, so now we send it over to Fleck.
Into the select.
okay, great.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor.
9:59.
Yeah.